What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So about 4 to 5 days ago, a former DICE dev called Rizible posted a long thread on Blue Sky, which is a copy of Twitter basically, and claimed that 98% of people who worked on previous Battlefield games have left EA, which is probably just an absurd number and is just nonsense, because there are definitely people working on the next Battlefield game who actually worked before on like Battlefield 2042, and there are still Battlefield veterans remaining in DICE and probably in other studios. So whatever he says basically after this number has to be taken into consideration with a pinch of salt, because apparently some of the things he mentions are not that accurate. He also says that current leaders are COD devs and they're just trying to take Battlefield into a COD-like path with a new game release every single year. We're not going to get a new release in 2026. So before we get into the thread, because the thread is going to be a long one, make sure to go down in the comment section and let me know what you think about these claims. Because first of all, that 98% is absurd. And second of all, just let me know if you think that COD can actually affect Battlefield so much that the ones making decisions, the big ones, the top dogs in EA, actually decide to do completely a copy of COD and just kill the franchise of Battlefield. Do you really think that is something possible? Go down in the comment section and let me know that, and let's see what we've got from Rizible, which is a former DICE dev. So to understand today, let's first look back when DICE was acquired by EA. So at that time, DICE's CEO was a guy named Patrick Soderlund. He orchestrated the acquisition and was rewarded with a big paycheck and promoted to be head of all EA game studios worldwide. Soderlund ran EA Studios out of the DICE office in Stockholm for 14 years. He was DICE's guy and he protected the studio within EA's studio system. Early on, he was more involved in recruiting and creative decisions linked to DICE and older Battlefield games. EA is set up with a central HQ in San Francisco, and game studios spread all over the world. Studios survive by keeping central EA out of their business, and studios fall apart when studio leadership can't stop central EA from meddling in creative, tech, and business decisions. So strong EA leaders protect their studios and weak ones get micromanaged to death. This is reason that so many of EA's studios have fallen apart, like Criterion, BioWare, and etc. DICE, however, survived longer than most because Soderlund's favor protected them from EA's more intrusive meddling. So this is very interesting because right now he claims that EA actually micromanages their studios to death. And if the leadership isn't strong enough, the meddling is going to get so intrusive that the studio is going to blow apart. That's a very interesting insight of what's going on inside EA. This is probably the reason why Marcus Leto was kicked out, Ridgeline Games was disbanded. These are the things that are going on inside of EA. So from 2005 to 2016, DICE was putting out bangers like BF2, Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3 and 4, and Battlefield 1. Consistently earning tons of money makes it easier for an EA studio to tell the rest of EA to go away. The DICE leadership change in 2016 is where the problem started. The DICE general manager, Patrick Buck, who was EP on BF3 and general manager during BF4, left DICE. Publicly, this was a mutual parting, with Soderlund wishing Buck well on future endeavors, but within the studio, there were rumors that Buck was kicked out due to inappropriate behavior. So Rizible doesn't actually say anything about this inappropriate behavior. He just uses an emoji to express his feelings, probably, but there's nothing actually clear here. In my opinion, Buck wasn't on the same page with someone like Soderlund on the subject of the future of Battlefield franchise. And in my opinion, the arguments got heated up and resulted into Soderlund with more power kicking out Buck. That's, in my opinion, what actually happened. But Buck was the last pre-acquisition employee to lead DICE. Soderlund's new pick for general manager was Oscar Gabrielson. He was a young man, founder of Uprise Studio, and it was acquired by EA and most notable for building Battlelog. So basically, Oscar Gabrielson was the one behind making Battlelog. Like Soderlund, Oscar was a founder who successfully sold out to EA. So Oscar took over while Star Wars Battlefront 2 was well in development. Neither he or Soderlund recognized the game's design flaws, and that ultimately led to its incredibly controversial launch. Since Oscar was new, Soderlund was able to shift blame to Buck and eat some of the responsibility directly. Battlefront 2 was the first serious monetary hit to Soderlund's and DICE's credibility, because money is literally everything to EA executives. And as DICE rallied to work on Battlefield 5, Soderlund took a more direct role, overseeing the game's vision and execution. This happened while BioWare was finalizing Mass Effect Andromeda, and if you guys didn't know, Mass Effect Andromeda was a ridiculous and embarrassing game. It was launched in 2017, and it was completely away and detached, let's say, from the rest of the Mass Effect franchise. So that was the second hit to Soderlund, and he now overseen 2 embarrassing launches in 2 years. So he doubled down on personally directing Battlefield 5 to ensure it would be just as big as Battlefield 1's record-setting launch. In 2018, Soderlund regularly reviewed playtests and tech demos, pulling producers and designers into his office to lecture them on how to build the game, quote-unquote, the right way. Gameplay physicality, the visceral sense of being physically impacted by the chaos around you, was one of his biggest mandates. So the Battlefield 5 team was sent into a physicality push to update games' production values to create a stronger sense of realism. This push took resources away from creating critical path content needed to finish the game. So aspects of the physicality focus are on full display in Battlefield 5's very hated non-traditional reveal trailer. That reveal trailer was completely wacky, and you guys probably know about it. And it's very important to remember, Battlefield 5 was the first game to launch after EA's pivot to live service games. DICE was told that they could no longer sell DLC packs, like all prior Battlefield games, monetizing only via non-gameplay impacting cosmetics. And after Battlefront 2, DICE was kinda afraid of live service games, and probably rightfully so. So after the fans rejected the Battlefield 5 reveal trailer, Soderlund gutted the wild outfits in favor of historically accurate but bland cosmetics. He also doubled down on physicality features, trying to position Battlefield 5 as a beautiful, realistic return to World War II. But at the end of 2018, Battlefield 5 missed its ship date by a month, and it was ultimately shipped as like an incomplete game with a quote-unquote "we'll fix this in the live service game" approach. And because of that, Battlefield 5 became the worst-selling mainline franchise game. 3 flops in 3 years was enough for EA CEO Andrew Wilson. Soderlund left EA right before the launch of Battlefield 5 and shortly founded Embark Games. And Oscar Gabrielson dodged blame by saying Soderlund had been overruling the studio during Battlefield 5's development. But you have to know this as well, EA cares about short-term shareholder value. Battlefield 5's miss put the company's fiscal year in danger. EA's last 2 changes were Anthem from BioWare and a small side project from Respawn called Apex Legends. You guys probably not know this, or you might. Anthem was a game with a huge hype around it, and the launch was a complete disaster. It was just a utter disaster, and it went wrong. Apex Legend, on the other hand, saved EA's year, and Respawn got instant credit with Soderlund's replacement, Laura Miele. Now that Soderlund had a brand new studio only 15 minutes from DICE, he started poaching talent. He got DICE's head of content and art, head of operations, head of R&D, and one of their senior creative directors. Other senior leaders also saw this as a good time to leave, going to places like Ubisoft. And the new Embark leadership, Soderlund, then started hiring their former teams, pulling over tons of artists, game and engine devs, and operation folks. But you have to know that Embark did not get designers and producers from Battlefield. Soderlund's meddling in Battlefield 5 created bad blood within the core Battlefield team, so the ones working on the previous Battlefield titles didn't actually want to work with Soderlund simply because they thought his meddling in Battlefield 5 and that physicality approach was the reason, or one of the reasons, why Battlefield 5 turned into a bad launch, let's say. Now, DICE is told to focus on Battlefield 5's live service, while the Battlefield Brain Trust designs the next big game, free from Soderlund's intrusive oversight. The remaining old-school Battlefield crew delivers Battlefield 5's War in the Pacific, while the newer guys iterate on what will become Battlefield 2042, which didn't work out so great. The launch of 2042 was just disastrous, and it wasn't just the game itself, the performance was just incredibly wrecked. 2042 also suffered from game engine technical challenges linked to simultaneous development for Gen 4 and Gen 5, which was just stupid. And regardless of all that, 2042 was DICE and Oscar's final chance. Once it failed to deliver, EA cleaned house. The business people at EA have always looked longingly at Call of Duty and the gazillions of dollars it makes annually. Then they look at Battlefield and ask, why can't you be more like that? 2042's performance gave Vince Zampella and Laura Miele their dream opportunity to turn Battlefield into COD. So that's what Rizible claims. In my opinion, they just can't do it. It's not that easy. They can't just turn a Battlefield game into a Call of Duty simply because they saw an opportunity. They already have power. They don't need opportunity. If they want to do something, they have the power to do it. They don't need opportunity. So that's why I don't just get it. But the historical facts he's mentioning are interesting to read. However, in 2021, Oscar was asked to leave. He was replaced as DICE general manager by Rebecca Cotes. She was a former Ubisoft general manager, and at the same time, DICE hired COD's general manager, Byron Beat, to join EA as Battlefield general manager. So control of Battlefield was transferred to Byron in LA, and DICE was told they'd join a group of Battlefield studios. That's what happened to DICE. EA also hired Marcus Leto to build a new studio in Seattle called Ridgeline. The plan for Ripple Effect, DICE, and Ridgeline was to build Battlefield like Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer built COD. So apparently that was the plan. But as of now, it appears that the new DICE, Ripple Effect, Criterion, and Motive are the Battlefield dev team. Rizible thinks that Criterion is here because they had a similar meltdown after shipping multiple middle-line Need for Speed games. So that's why they experienced a meltdown, and now the best ones are a part of like the Battlefield team. Rizible says that, quote, "I haven't worked there since the pivot to pulling Criterion and Motive. I do think it's interesting that the 4 studios are splitting up work based on content areas and not each building their own game like the COD studios do." Rizible also continues saying, quote, "The goal is a new Battlefield game every year. I think EA has a roadmap to achieve this, but we won't see the next game in 2026. If Beat sticks to his own vision, we'll get a full-priced main game with limited single-player, seasons, battle pass, and live service slot, and a free-to-play game mode like Warzone." Rizible also says, quote, "I bet Battlefield Mobile is on the roadmap, but not this year. They believe they need to repair the brand's reputation by focusing on core gameplay that people want. This means a modern-day setting and Conquest 24/7. They'll also drop 2042's operators and return to soldier classes." EA leadership, Wilson, Miele, Beat, and Zampella, all of them want to extract maximum revenue from their players and drive up shareholder value. This is what Rizible says, and he ends the whole thread by saying this: "They make games to make money, not the reverse." So that's about the long thread that we were talking about. But to be honest, I don't think Battlefield will turn into COD just by having someone like Byron Beat as general manager. You guys probably not know this, but Byron Beat was working on Call of Duty games before, but now he's a general manager working on the next Battlefield game. Some of Rizible's claims need to be taken with a pinch of salt and are not that accurate in my opinion, and I'd rather wait for the new game to come out and see how they do, and then I can completely criticize what this new team have done. I mean, just because they're new doesn't mean they're gonna mess things up, because Rizible said that the next game is gonna have a new philosophy. Whether that's good or bad depends on your personal outlook. I don't think it depends on your outlook, it depends on the result. If they can deliver a quality Battlefield game that resembles the core values of Battlefield franchise, then it doesn't matter who made it. If the team's new, it doesn't matter, as long as that game is good. So, in my opinion, we just have to wait and see how things are gonna go, and that's not a big wait. It's about 10 months, so don't forget to comment down below, let me know what you think, and let me know if you just trust this dude with what he says. Most and foremost, let me know if you think Battlefield will ever turn into a COD game with yearly releases, things like that. In my opinion, that is just impossible to happen. Thank you all guys for watching, and until next time guys, stay cool.